Hello and welcome back to Spiral Revival. We are coming to a close of this series through the chakras, as we've been in the third eye for a while now and entering the crown very soon. As I've been saying, as we move into the subtler, higher chakra energies in this cycle, the shifts are subtler, the movements, the energies, there's less to talk about. It's moving faster, and higher frequencies. I wanted to, before we jump in, just kind of do a little touching back on what the modality is that I'm working with to move through the chapters of my book in alignment with the chakras, and why I'm saying that we're currently in this chakric energy. I mentioned it in the first episode of this series that I'm following through the cycle of the yearly round with the solstices and equinox points that form a cross, and that we go through the chakric energies twice, once from the summer solstice down to the winter solstice, root to crown, and then we restart at the root and go back up to summer solstice through the chakras. And this teaching comes from my teacher and friend Genevieve Akiel, and what I did not know and have learned is that she has found and brought forth a name for it, which is Kundalini Chrism Yoga. So if you're more interested in this teaching, and if it resonates with you, definitely seek out her information on it, because it's just kind of now emerging into the world, this model for tracking the energies, which there's many models, and we can all feel these energies as we move through the year. Personally being very inspired by and moved by mythology and archetypal energies, and the way that the world speaks to us and we speak to the world, just that relationship. This model has put that into a very clear format for me that has been very fun to play with and witness, and has felt very clear. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on what it was that I'm doing again before diving in. Since being in this third eye energy, I went on a beautiful rafting trip with my friends through the Green River in Colorado, where we went for 4 nights and 5 days, just rafting and being together, and it felt like very transcendent. We didn't have any service and we were just with each other, and also very ancestral. I'd never been rafting before, but it just felt so familiar to row together with others and be on the search for a piece of land to land on, and then jumping off the boats, scouting the place, figuring out where we're going to sleep, setting up the kitchen, making food, eating together in a circle. It's those times where I feel most alive, and I definitely felt like many lifetimes were coinciding and overlapping, and it is just so beautiful. And that's also why, again, I'm lagging a little bit on bringing this episode out, just because that was such a transcendent, out of time that was incredible. And then coming out of it, my car had broken down in the desert, so I was stuck in the desert for a few days figuring that out. But alas, it was all meant to be, because it allowed me to, and a few other friends, like a whole day of relaxing in a park, to drop in with each other and ground after the journey. And a lot of beautiful things happened. The mechanic fixed my car for like 1/4 of the price that it should have been, and the part was affordable. And yeah, we rode that wave back home, grounding in here, and ready to touch on these last 2 chapters. I felt it made sense to combine these last 2 chapters as I combined the first 2, especially since there's such like higher frequency, like I was saying, like there's a lot less to dive in on. It just is. So this episode will mainly be just a reading of the excerpts from these 2 chapters that I feel bring that message through. So just for you guys to receive and integrate, feel that inspiration and that guidance for our awareness and our conscious journey through this realm, before diving back into the root energies after this summer solstice on June 20th, which is also the day that my very first song release comes out. Curiosa. It is very aquatic and summery, and I'm excited to release it because, like I've shared on this podcast, I believe that all of us are artists naturally, inherently. That is what being human is being a creator and a singer and a dancer and a storyteller. And I love witnessing and receiving the downloads from my friends and my peers, for we're each a representative of our own inner worlds, and I can only access, that specific frequency through each one of you, and it's an honor to feel confident now to share certain little windows and bubbles into my inner world with you. Thank you for listening. This chapter on the third eye, which is the indigo chapter, I'm wearing indigo and violet today, is called Communion. When we remove blocks, it is just as important to dedicate the space they held to higher truths, holding an intention for the work, inviting in the manifestation of our dreams. But here comes the challenge of how large we allow ourselves to dream. How much confidence do we have in our ability to create our own reality? Know thyself as creator. All which we experience is a direct relationship between the internal and external. It's not necessarily that certain smells, sounds, and visuals possess within them something spiritual. Their effect depends on how they are experienced by the perceiver. A quote by Aristotle from Psychology. In every case, the mind which is actively thinking is the object which it thinks. For example, incense clears space in a way which is entirely dependent on consciousness. When we experience this smell as pleasant, it influences our mental state for the better. Therefore, we're not as easily influenced by consuming thoughts or paranoia. The same with warm lighting and peaceful music. Our reaction to them is the switch in consciousness which elevates us above intrusive thoughts and bring us to feel safe. And by functioning from a state of mind that is safety and tranquility, we manifest that corresponding reality. So it's not that the objects are intrinsically magical, but through our relationship with them, they trigger a higher consciousness. I think I would now change the word magical to something else, because everything is magical, and I've said in this book that science does not disprove magic, science is understanding magic, but I more so meant like, it's not like the object itself is administering peace, it's our relationship with these experiences which trigger higher consciousness. This effect is a clear display of our personal power, not only over how we experience reality, but also our ability to transmute our present reality. Yet notice how the dependence on us seems to devalue its legitimacy, as if to debunk it. Why do we so quickly discredit our personal experience? The most obvious example of how we do this is by observing dreams. Our waking life is full of other conscious beings who validate this dream, and we feel secure in this trust. Our dreams are just as real, except we're the sole experiencer. It's a world of our own, yet we devalue it and say it isn't real. We walk away from it, leave it to be forgotten. A quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. We do not simply live in the universe lives within us. If reality lies in our personal experience, then what excludes the dream realm? If anything, it's an even more personal experience. Many of us will find we don't value ourselves enough to be the only one around to validate an experience, to be the sole observer. It may seem logical to value what others agree on above our personal explorations of consciousness, yet since the dawn of civilization, the human evolution seems to be one of consciousness. A quote from Bertrand Russell, The Problems of Philosophy. It is our particular thoughts and feelings that have primitive certainty. This applies to dreams and hallucinations as well as to normal perceptions. When we dream or see a ghost, we certainly do have the sensations we think we have. Thus, the certainty of our knowledge, of our own experience, does not have to be limited in any way to allow for exceptional cases. The very nature of technological evolution is in externalizing and simplifying the way in which we satisfy our every need. Even our thought processes are externalized into writing, imagery, books, language, tools of measure, etc. We have created a system for which to live in a different reality than original humanoids or any other creature, a new plane of existence. With the time we have where we don't need to hunt or maintain habitable conditions ourselves, we are able to explore and express our consciousness through infinite avenues. Yet we have had limits placed upon it our entire lives. Even though we have evolved to a point at which humans are capable of vast explorations of consciousness, that energy is being diverted towards sources which profit from our attention. In order for us to give that attention, we are taught we are unworthy. We must compete, we must look pleasing, taught to live in a world of hierarchy. A quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my favorites. In nature, we return to faith and reason. There, I feel that nothing can befall me in life. My head bathed by the air and uplifted into infinite spaces. All mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part of parcel of God. Sometimes I think about Jesus, Buddha, and the numerous personages who have come in purity to show us what we truly are. A human without self-placed limitations. Physically, they were exactly the same as us. The difference was solely mental. When Jesus decided to share his message to reach millions, he went and did it. He didn't sit around in fear. He didn't think of excuses or doubt himself. When Buddha renounced possessions and royalty, he didn't worry about what others would think of him. He did not fear what would be of him. Throw yourself into the abyss and realize that it's a featherbed. Shout out Terrence. When we are present, we are fearless. Who we were in the past can be viewed objectively from a place of detachment because we do not place our worth in it. Who we will be is entrusted to the sacred path. Often, awareness of the present can be overwhelming because we realize the fragility of the dream. We feel the void we float in yet are usually so blind to, but it is through love, and love only, that we find peace, by loving the uncontainability of it all. Loving yourself for being amidst it all, feeling it flow within you and without you. The fear can always be transmuted into love, for darkness may exceed in rationality, but true love is something darkness by nature cannot be. So when we feel overwhelmed by information, stories, images, and narratives, we can cut through it by focusing on truth, tuning into that place where we feel the real. By honoring time for conscious communion with divinity, we receive clarity on how to proceed in life. We emit a signal of commitment and determination. Quote from Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. While dreaming, a conscious dreamer is capable of instantly manifesting whatever they please in their dreams, because they are aware that it is an illusion of their own creation. Even unconscious dreamers, with a fearful paranoia, they can manifest their greatest fears to create a nightmare. In waking life, this dream is shared with billions, even trillions of other dreamers within space and time. And because of this, fruition of our manifestations takes time, but they do not fail. Quote from Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts by Funkadelic. You rise as high as your dominant aspiration. You descend to the level of your lowest concept of yourself. Yeah. So as we approach the wrapping of this book, coming towards this conclusion, that always propels into a continuation, which is that we create our own reality. We shall know ourselves as creator, and once we confidently and comfortably, fearlessly do so, and understand our role in the whole, understand our place as an infinite being, as a dreamer amidst many other dreamers, we can easily move with grace and through the cycles. It's becoming aware of the cycles, and in that awareness being able to move with grace through this reality and pull to us that which we desire and move gracefully past that which is tumultuous and end up in less and less tumultuous conflicts in general through this greater awareness. This is deeply guided by intuition, the third eye, clarity of sight and understanding, great awareness, expansive, transcendent awareness, the connection, being able to bring our consciousness into our unconscious, and therefore the unconsciousness into our consciousness, the darkness to the light, and being able to see clearly into those darker, shadowy, murkier, not like this is negative, but just the parts of ourselves and of reality that are difficult to see. Maybe because they're subtler, maybe because we're so used to it that it's not as noticeable. Coming into the final chapter, the crown, which cycles us back into the root, which is funny because I wasn't aware of this chakric cyclical modality at the time, but there's an innate understanding of nature's laws, which is that the end of something is always the cycle back into the beginning. So the final chapter is all about these cycles and leading us back onto our journey of self-applied ignorance and learning. Cycles and the illusion of permanence. We are like a stone made smooth by a pounding shore, like a diamond formed by the pressure of earth's mantle, like gold purified by fire. It is important to understand that we will inevitably return to each of these lessons in varying manifestations throughout our life, and that this is not a downfall, but our purpose. When we go through these lessons, it is not to attain completion or reach a conclusion. There is no cessation, but continuous refinement. We will repeatedly come to the same lessons manifested in ways personal to us, showing different faces, but at the root, pointing to the same inner conflicts. Yet each time, we will be more equipped with tools gained along the way. It's our previous hardships which allow us the opportunity to face new challenges. Going through and gaining wisdom from our struggles creates a sensitivity for when a certain lesson presents itself in the future. When we gain mastery over an archetypal conflict, it no longer baits us. Its attempts don't even come up on our radar, but become the ground beneath us. However, this means we are now receptive to challenges which were previously like clouds overhead beyond the horizon line. This itself is an honor and a great responsibility. There is now an awareness for something we were previously blind to, but was present regardless. Presented with the opportunity and privilege to consciously act accordingly, to face it and continue onwards. A quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes. If we sing the song of consciousness until we feel the burn of truth, we throw a burst of fire into the darkness of the psyche so we can see what we are truly doing. The unmoved mover, this is the nature of Source. In regards to being seedlings of God, we are the same. We hold the aspectless, true essence within us as well as the persona, which is in perpetual transformation, cycling through traumas, influences, offenses, opinions, and desires. Awareness of this is to accept the duty of observing and inquiring into the manifestations of the persona. Know thyself. A quote from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. The rational soul traverses the whole universe and the void, and reaches out into the endlessness of infinite time, and comprehends and reflects upon the periodic rebirth of the whole. As each encounter and re-encounter with an old lesson brings us to new vantage points, we continue to uncover and face the mirrors which show us festering aspects of ourselves. Previously hidden, they were deteriorating parts of our lives through unconscious behaviors. Now, recognized and ready to be healed, these are the cycles of life, whether this chapter on earth or our timeless soul journey. Cycles are the basis of all manifestation. As we know, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. There is only transformation. Reality's constant is movement. A perpetual state of flux permeates all being from micro to macro ad infinitum. A quote from John Woodruff. God never destroys, but withdraws the universe to himself. Infinitesimal change. Infinitely small change. Movements you don't notice until it eventually produces a visible effect, like how leaves slowly dance off a tree until one day you notice a once full tree is now bare, or when you set a book on a shelf and one day it's fallen to the floor. This is the nature of the domino effect initiated at the beginning of time. Space and time is like a womb, a fertile fabric for all manifestation. Source is the vital life force energy which animates the physical plane, filling the womb with life for her matter. When split into the smallest unit of physical manifestation, the atom, notice what escapes. Nuclear energy, the atomic bomb. This is the energy within a single unit. This is the energy coursing through the multiplicities, fostered by the fabric of space and time, Indra's net. And this energy is the constant. It is source. No matter how perceived reality ebbs and flows, the energy is the same. The energy cannot be created nor destroyed. A poem that I wrote. Empedocles' cycle of unity and strife echo throughout the waves of time, progress through a system until it's outgrown, must hold space for the old to be let go. Dirt crumbles off the blooming flower, daily lives to planets and stars, big bangs to eschatons, just to learn itself, experience all sides. How can I beat this level? I may want to open my eyes, must let go to outgrow, but afraid of the unknown. So, in this web of glistening dewdrops, we are a cross-section here to play a part in the show, here to learn something we don't seem to know, to fulfill our personal prophecies, but once here it's so easy to get stuck, to forget. Awareness of the dream is so overwhelming that we have to immerse ourselves into the constructed illusion of permanence. Now, society's reinforced illusion of permanence is like a weak dam holding back an unstoppable flow. Buying into this illusion, as our foundation invites crisis, tragedy, and disaster. Of course, suffering is inevitable, but when we found our lives full of ideas of stability and long-term on something as reliable as shifting sand, the result is catastrophe. It's like trying to build a sand castle on the spinning blocks of a playground. When the natural cyclical movements go from unnoticeably small to mass impact, our way of life is totally disrupted, if not destroyed. May it be by economic crash, natural disaster, illness, or any other movement, we are so disconnected from the earth and its cycles that when the protection seal is broken, many have nowhere else to go but homelessness, crime, poverty, crisis, those left behind by society. But we don't have to escape into the wilderness in order to embrace the flow of natural transformation in our lives. We may presently ride the wave of temporality regardless of our job, family, status, age, or location. We may learn to let go and welcome the waves of life rather than fight ceaselessly to tame them. When we learn that death is a gateway to rebirth, our fear will begin to fade away. There's no completion but continuation. Look upon the darkest of times in life and recognize all you've learned from them. Observe yourself before each of them, during and after. See how the cycles directly affected you. Recognize them throughout reality. Then we begin to understand the necessity and the benefit of each swing of the pendulum. We understand resistance will only hit us harder than if we let go and swing with it. The highs bring awareness of our personal power and potential. The lows bear the opportunity to validate that power. Sometimes we're given treasures to learn how to lose them, and sometimes we lose to learn how to treasure. This is alignment, being in tune. We find the rhythm and become like a child swinging through the monkey bars, using the momentum of each fall to bring us to new heights. The momentum we gain is personal experience, needed in order to fulfill our soul's mission. The key to swinging freely is discernment, the attentive mind to let die what must die and to embrace which comes. The more we try to run away from the downward swings, it is like we're pulling ourselves back on a slingshot further and further. Of course, the denial and escapism is rooted in fear, but within each of us, there is an undying light which guides us through even the darkest of nights. When we listen to this deep sense and act upon it, we strengthen it. The movements of life become clearer and meet you with less resistance. Each destruction and downfall is accepted as fertile grounds for unknown treasures. Trust, relinquishing our grasp on the illusion of control, letting die the illusion of permanence. By looking upon the movements we have thus passed through, we kindle a trust in the unforeseen. That which we cannot know in individual consciousness, but which we have personally experienced to be divine order. Understanding ourselves as the vital life force energy which animates reality like a sock puppet play, an eternal all-being which has come into this specific existence not only as human, But at this time, with these people, where everything that has ever happened or will happen to us happens, and applied ignorance unto itself in order to personally experience its own truth. From an attached point of view, the movements of life may seem like a cycle of gifts and losses, of gratitude and grief, but really it's all blessings. If we only have gratitude for the times where all seems right in our world, we don't yet understand that one cannot exist without the other. Times when things seem to be taken from us are blessings as well, for they teach us that which we must learn in order to progress further. Lessons we may not have encountered if things did go our way. The more understanding of cycles we gain, the less they drag our emotions and well-being along with them, and we travel with grace. Non-dual amidst duality, united amongst multiplicities. And when we are no longer attached to the movements of this plane, we are free to be receptive to higher movements, subtler movements. We can embrace changes, unexpected or planned, as meant, and receive guidance from our true essence through symbols and dreams. Instead of being torn by every loss, we immediately ask ourselves, what is it bringing to the table? What is it allowing to see the light? No more good or bad, just dance. Now, to wrap the book up, through the process of channeling and writing the book, came to this model through the number 7 and 8, and that's what brought forth the fact that the chapters were aligning with the chakras the whole time, and the importance of the number 7 just really came through in this book. So here I present this model that, it reflects through so many different cultures and modalities and sciences, in music theory, in our DNA structure. The number 7 is everywhere, and specifically in theology and religion and spirituality. In order to better understand these movements, it serves us to translate them into digestible models. A common depiction of reality is through sacred geometry. This is especially the case with the seed or flower of life, which the model I present is the double helix, the two-dimensional mirrored wave shape. And if you take our DNA double helix and instead of looking at it long ways, take a cross section and look down or up it, it looks like the flower of life. And that's super interesting because in here I'm like, we often have reality in this depicted through this sacred geometry shape, but since we're in a linear reality, it might be more beneficial for us to look at it from the side, like in a linear version. I didn't realize that they were literally the same thing, just from a different angle, until just a few weeks ago, and that was really cool. Also, I'm not well versed in music theory, but a lot of what I'm saying is really obvious in music theory, so there's many ways of understanding it. So, in sacred geometry and the flower of life, the base unit for these shapes is the circle. The circle is a finite infinity, like how within a number there are infinite fractions. It represents any unit from atom to human to universe. The flower of life and many other shapes is a sacredly geometric web of overlapping circles. This represents the interconnectedness of all things, like the fabric of time and space or Indra's net. Although beautiful, we may gain more understanding by looking at it from another angle. It's important to understand that these are tools for us to express and experiment with. The concepts are beyond time and space. Therefore, there's no single shape or model to depict it, but various which are interconnected. As such, the double helix, or two-dimensional mirrored wave, is another angle at which we may observe the pattern. In order to utilize this model, we should first understand the number 7. from the ranges of light visible to us on the electromagnetic spectrum to innumerable literature throughout history like Plato's World, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Kybalion, the Bible, ancient concepts of 7 heavens and beyond, the number 7 represents the stages of a cycle from beginning to full expansion or expression and to end. Here is a page that I get the most questions on, which is a graph on the left starting out with just the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then connecting it to the electromagnetic spectrum or the colors of the rainbow. 1 is red, 2 is orange, 3 is yellow, 4 is green, 5 is blue, 6 is indigo, 7 is violet, and there is no 8th color. Then with the chakras, we have root in order: root, sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. Then in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, we have the 7 days of the Chonyed Bardo, which is with the peaceful deities, and then there's 7 days with the wrathful deities. So on the first day, which aligns with red and the root chakra, which the root chakra is all about survival, foundation, the first day of the Chonyed Bardo is the spreading of the seed, the birth, from within the mother of space and heaven. So that's pretty root energy to me. Then the second day, aligning with orange, or the sacral chakra, which is creation and sexuality, in the Chonyed Bardo is described as a dull hell-like color, which I feel sounds very red-orange, and represents the avoidance of anger, which is very interesting for the sacral chakra. Then the third day of the Chonyed Bardo is a yellow light, aligning with the color yellow and the solar plexus. The solar plexus having to do with your personal power, your image. So the third day of the Chonyed Bardo is a yellow light, and it's represented by earthly wisdom, which I think aligns a lot with the solar plexus chakra, because the solar plexus chakra is our sense of self, it's our ego in this world, and it's the last chakra before we enter the higher chakras, which are more beyond this body and realm. Then the fourth one is a red light, which represents happiness, which the red does not align very much with the green of the heart chakra, but the heart chakra is love and compassion, and often red is also associated with love, and it represents happiness. Then the next day of the Chonyed Bardo, the 5th day, which connects to blue and the throat chakra, representing communication, expression, divine expression, boundaries and discernment. This day of the Chonyed Bardo is a green light, so it's kind of like the green was like right next to where it should have been, and it's represented by navigating emotions, which is very in alignment with divine expression, communication, boundaries, navigating emotions. Then on the 6th day, which is when we get to the third eye of indigo, intuition, connection, clarity, all-seeingness, that 6th day of the Chonyed Bardo, all previous 4 energies combine to form a bright light, and we arrive at the gatekeepers, which is like, and then the 7th day, which is in alignment with the color violet and the crown chakra, which represents just like divinity, which is where we're at. This is represented, the 7th day of the Chonyed Bardo, by a rainbow light mandala surrounded by fairies. Then the 8th day, which, so in this double helix thing model that I'm talking about, it's really interesting. If you were just listening to this, I'll post pictures on our Instagram, Spiral Revival, of what this model looks like. But basically, like, there's like a point where the cross-section happens, and then there's an expansion, and then cross-section, expansion, cross-section, twisting. That's the double helix shape. So within that expansion, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 is that twist point, that in my model. 8 is the point of transformation. 8 is that portal into the next expansion and opening. And it's interesting because the number 8, it literally is that shape. It is the symbol for the number 8 represents that transmutation twisting point. So yeah, just like in this cycle of the chakras throughout the yearly round, crown feeds into root, it just goes back over and over again. So on the 8th day of the Chonyad Bardo, we go from we transform from the peaceful deities to 7 days of wrathful deities. So there's a polarity of the cycle, end of one and a rebirth into another portal, another dimension. Then there's the 8 concentric circles of Plato's whirl, which is a model that he depicts at the end of the Republic, which is a description of the afterlife and time and space, which I have a whole podcast I've recorded like 4 times comparing the similarities of what the afterlife is described as from the Tibetan Book of the Dead and Plato's Republic, because they're super similar and it's pretty crazy. And I should just redo it. I was still finding my voice, but for him, the first day is represented by a rainbow, which is interesting because in the peaceful deities one, the last day is represented by a rainbow. So we have this like the beginning and the end is like this white light rainbow. Then the second day, orange, is represented by a dark color. Third day should be yellow, represented by the palest color, which yellow is the palest color of the rainbow. Fourth day, again, like the Chonyad Bardo, is represented as red, even though in the chakras it's green. Fifth day, represented, normally 5 is blue, is a dark color. Sixth day, indigo, is a pale color. Seventh day is the brightest, and then again on the 8th they're transported to a hell-like realm where they're sent to be reborn, which is basically what happens in the Chonyad Bardo as well. So this like transformation, purification by fire, energy coming through with the 8. It's like we condense this expansiveness back into the smallest form so it can expand again. This brings me to like the law of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, and the Big Bang. And so like the law of entropy is like we're going into further and further chaos, and like everything just kind of like spreads and gets into further disorder. But I think that's just that we have been expanding in that direction since the Big Bang time, but it comes back into itself. It always does. It doesn't just disperse into nothing. It disperses into nothing and then it comes back into nothing, and you only have something in the in-between stages, which is what Empedocles talks about. In the poem I spoke earlier, I mentioned Empedocles' cycle of unity and strife, echo throughout the waves of time, big bangs and eschatons, So Empedocles' cycle of unity and strife, he's one of like the earliest Greek philosophers, and back then they were very much focused just on like, they thought everything was just made up of different ratios of the 4 elements. And anyway, he made this cycle model, which is like, okay, basically like the solstices. It's like the same solstice equinox thing, but grand scale, where it's like, okay, at the top we have full love, full unity. Every material thing, every atom in the universe is together, full unity. Then as we descend, we have like a mid descension point, and then at the bottom we hit full hate, full strife. Every element in the universe is fully separated and at opposite possible corners of the universe from each other, and then we start coming back into the ascent towards love again. And the idea is that nothing can really be happening during full love or full hate. This is what he called it, love and hate, or unity and strife, which was interesting. That's just like full nothingness. It's like how they say the Big Bang came from, like, yeah, every single atom that exists in this entire universe was densed into this one point. That's what that is describing before they ever knew this could happen. And then it expands, which is what happened. It expands into, it expands out of itself. It descends towards that hate point, that strife point, that total opposites point. And then back again, and basically this reality, this universe that we see ourselves existing in, can only manifest within those in-between points. As things are coming apart and as they come back together, we can have experiences such as this. And I believe that maybe we're descending into dissolution or chaos from that Big Bang point, and that's why we have this second law of thermodynamics, but it's an incomplete story because it doesn't take into account the eschaton, the event at the end of time, which is like maybe full, and then it comes back together again. So, yeah, welcome to my brain. Okay, so then there's like the densities of consciousness model, which is like 7th density consciousness, like 4th density consciousness. Those align as well. Something really interesting is Hindu cosmology also aligns with this. They have the 7 upper lokas. Lokas are worlds or realms or planes. So the 7 upper lokas of Hindu cosmology, there's also lower ones. I just kind of focused on the positive with the Chonyir Bardo and the upper lokas. So the first loka is aligning with red, and the root chakra is Burloka. This is the plane of Earth and similar planets. It holds human life and duality. Makes sense. Then the second one, orange, which is the sacral, sexuality, and creation, is Buvarloka, inhabited by semi-divine beings and humans, represents the space surrounding Earth. So like this slightly higher consciousness place. Then the third loka, which is, I'm connecting it to the color yellow, the solar plexus power image, is Svarga loka, represents heaven, a transitory plane between lives, and is inhabited by deities such as Indra. So makes sense to me. I find that connection being in that it's like the earthly wisdom plane. It's about power and image, still connected to like the individual, and it's in the soul, in the chakras. The solar plexus is connecting with the heart as being the bridge between the lower chakras and the higher chakras. So it's this place that represents heaven, and it's transitory. It brings people up from up down, it brings people from down up. It's that transitory bridge point. So now in the 4th, the heart, green, love, compassion, we have the 4th loka. Mahar loka is the plane of the wise beings, sages and rishis, where they observe in love and empathy. Very 4th chakra vibes. Then the 5th loka, connecting with blue and the throat chakra of communication and expression. Jana loka. It holds enlightened beings or liberated mortals. This is the plane of creativity, which is throat chakra. 6th loka, connecting with the third eye and intuition, is Tapaloka, inhabited by immortal beings and personifications of knowledge, represented by galaxies. So full-on neural networks of stars, which connects to the 6th density of consciousness, which I didn't really go through those all because it's pretty much just like the consciousness connected to each chakra. But what's interesting is the 6th density of consciousness, third eye, is about non-duality, all being and understanding, and this is where social memory complex consciousness density exists. Social memory complexes are basically like neural networks of the universe, and these star constellations like the Pleiades are the neural networks of the Pleiadian social memory complex. So it's just like multiple, like a constellation of consciousnesses that have come into the same frequency, and that's why they kind of channel and speak as we and have this like hive mind existence, and you don't have a body, you're just coexisting in this neural network of kin-minded beingness. And so yeah, that connects like the 6th loka, the 6th density of consciousness, third eye, connecting as being social memory complexes. This Tapaloka is represented by immortal beings that personify knowledge. So the personification of knowledge itself in galaxies, that's basically a social memory complex. Then the 7th loka, connecting to the crown, is Satyaloka, where source, the supreme consciousness, exists, the egg or lotus, from which the universe expands. So again, when we get to the very end of the cycle, again being met with the beginning of the cycle, the egg, the fertility, the beginning is what resides at the end. And yeah, below Berloka, the earth, there resides 7 more hell-like lower lokas. So yeah, just a lot of hell-likeness and a lot of 7s. That's my model. I've had a lot of questions about it, and I feel like I've been meaning to kind of just go over it, and I'm glad I've gotten to do that. Okay, into wrapping this series and this chapter. The number 8 represents the transition from one cycle to another. Its shape alone represents infinity, showing the perpetual continuation of this process. It also depicts the shape of the point it stands for, the cross-section or twist of a loop. In some literature and beliefs, this 8th stage is presented by a hellish or fiery plane. This goes back to the idea of gold purified by fire, a red phoenix born from the ashes. 8 represents the vortex or gateway, which brings life through the death of the old and into the light of the new. This model is especially powerful because of its ability to encase like a Russian doll. Each segment of 7 is a wave with its own 7 segments. This is what a lot of sacred geometry represents, but this linear model is more relatable since we exist in a linear reality. When applied to reality, this model allows us to visualize movements of nature which are reflected in everything. As lessons come to full expression, we can trust we are not moving towards a demise, but a transmutation. We can move with the swing of the pendulum and stop pulling the slingshot on ourselves. Like revisiting these pages to pick up something you've missed before, we've cycled through lessons to expand evermore, to become a sensitive and vulnerable warrior, surrendering to an innocence which protects, facing the world feet on the ground and head in the clouds, witnessing in awe this technicolor world, receiving the highest potential of your existence. With guidance from love, truth, and stillness, we live real life. We are the children, you and I. Do not be overwhelmed by the confusion. Tune in, go within, and we will meet again in unity. Isn't it pointless? Isn't it beautiful? Thank you so much for listening and for coming on this little adventure with me through these chakric energies as we've been moving through them. I hope that it's resonated and supported in your personal journey in this life, and I'm grateful for this little series for getting me a lot more comfortable in my voice and in my expression, as I didn't have to think too much about what I was saying, since it's something I already wrote and thought about many times before. And I'm excited for when I'm ready to continue on in this next season of Spiral Revival, to bring forth lots of different topics and people to talk with and have conversations about this archaic revival that we find ourselves in right now. It's very much accelerating, revealing itself, and there's a lot of important things and information to share together. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for receiving. Thank you for your attention and your focus and your receptivity. I hope you have a really, really beautiful time, whatever you're doing. And I will speak to you again soon. Ciao.